Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime Moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel, thank you. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of The Great Ruler based on novel. So let's start. A spiritual array? A hint of shock finally appeared within Anran's eyes. She could sense the violent spiritual energy fluctuation emitting from the spiritual array. Judging from the fluctuations, it was already close to a heavenly fusion stage. So this guy was also a rank 2 spiritual array master? No wonder he dared to act this arrogant when he's still at the spirit stage middle phase. Anran finally understood why Mu Chen had acted the way he did before. However, she only sneered in response to the spiritual array. After all, to fight against a heavenly fusion stage powerhouse would require at least a rank 3 spiritual array master. Right now, Mu Chen was still quite far from it. At this moment, Mu Chen spat out white air from his mouth. His black eyes focused themselves on Anran as he changed hand seals. Then, a muffled cry resounded out. Dragon Elephant Array. Roar? At this moment, sounds of dragons and elephants resounded out loudly as a powerful spiritual energy surged out. Within the hall, many new students were surprised as they stared at the screen of light where Mu Chen was being shown. Although they weren't in the same place as Mu Chen, they could still sense how powerful the spiritual array activated by Mu Chen was. But even if the spiritual array was powerful, was it truly enough to defeat Anran, who was at the heavenly fusion stage? Deafening roars rang out within the vast and empty hall from the dragon and elephant. At that moment, the entire hall trembled as a formidable spiritual energy fluctuation emitted from the giant spiritual array above Mu Chen, dragon elephant array. A flash of light surged through Mu Chen's eyes as he changed his hand seals. At the same time, the massive spiritual array shook. Then dark golden beams of light surged out and formed into a galloping dragon and elephant. As they galloped through the empty skies, a powerful pressure erupted viciously in Anran's direction. While Anran stood in the air and stared at the golden dragon and elephant, dense spiritual energy gushed out from her hands as she struck out towards it, shattering ethereal palm. Once Anran attacked the golden dragon and elephant, the air in front of her seemed to become distorted. A dense spiritual energy gathered and formed into a palm of light as it smacked heavily against the approaching golden dragon and elephant. Boom, the two attacks collided, and a terrifying spiritual energy shockwave was instantly emitted. Dragon Elephant Suppression. Mu Chen said out softly. The golden dragon and elephant quickly turned into a golden disc with a dragon and elephant covering it. Then, with a loud explosion, it completely shattered the palm of light as it charged fiercely towards Anran. Wave surfing slash. Anran's eyes remained cold as Mu Chen's attack approached her. Dense spiritual energy gathered on her hands and formed a wave-like blade of light. Then, as she swung her arm down, the blade of light rushed out and slashed the golden disc. Metal clanging sounds rang out when they collided. In the end, the blade of light actually split the golden disc into 2 halves. Thanks for the battle, senior. Luo Li looked at the boy with reddened cheeks as she spoke softly. Hearing this, the boy suddenly let out a bitter laugh. Who would have known that this beautiful girl would actually be this powerful? With her heavenly fusion stage strength, it was no wonder that Anran had said that she was the only one that could compete against her. Luo Li actually won this quickly? The new students recovered from the shock and exclaimed out loud. Then, they stared in shock at the girl in black dress that possessed a slender body. However, the latter's eyes remained calm and completely ignored everybody's gazes. She only lifted her exquisite face and stared at a few screens made of light until it finally landed on the screen where Mu Chen was located. A hint of worry appeared in her eyes. Bang! Anran's body appeared in front of Mu Chen's body as her hand contained a terrifying spiritual energy fluctuation. It headed mercilessly towards Mu Chen's chest. However, it was blocked completely by the latter's arms. A muffled sound rang out and spiritual energy fluctuations emitted from that spot. Mu Chen's body was instantly sent flying away and his feet slid on the ground for a few hundred meters until he finally stabilized. It was evident that his arms were slightly numb. In that moment, Mu Chen's eyes turned slightly serious. This was his second time fighting against a real heavenly fusion stage powerhouse. The first time was naturally against Liu Jingshan. However, he was only at the spiritual rotation stage back then. The gap between the two of them was simply indescribable. Therefore, he could only fight against him after borrowing the strength of the 9 Netherbird. But even so, the price he paid was that he had to fall unconscious for nearly half a month. Right now, it was apparent that he was much stronger than before. Even if he only relied on his own strength, he was still able to fight back against a powerhouse of that level, though he was completely being overwhelmed. If he wanted to defeat Anran, it wasn't enough with just these methods. It was evident that the current 9 Netherbird had regained a bit of power after absorbing the mysterious Spirit Hail Dragon and the geocentric Flame Japalura's soul essences. Not only was the color on its body becoming more profound, even the black flames that shrouded its body had become a lot denser. You shouldn't need my strength against such an opponent, right? The 9 Netherbird said lazily. Moreover, I don't want to attack since I still have a lot of spiritual energy that's not digested yet. I just came here to get the power that belongs to me. Mu Chen replied snappily. After the bloodline bond, to a certain extent, a portion of the 9 Netherbird's powers belongs to him as well. He could easily use it as if it was his own. At the same time, a portion of his powers could be used by the 9 Netherbird. However, it was evident that the 9 Netherbird does not care about his current power. This was one of the benefits of the bloodline bond. Of course, the power that he could freely use could not compare in strength with the all-out attack that the 9 Netherbird had done back then against the heaven-rank spiritual beasts. However, it was already sufficient for him right now. The 9 Netherbird slowly closed its eyes as it lay lazily on the mandala flower. Black spiritual energy erupted from its body like flames as it gushed into the tiny spirit that was sitting on top of the spiritual energy light wheel. Did you become quiet because you finally are aware of the difference in strength? And Ran sneered as she increased the ferocity of her attacks. By relying on her heavenly fusion stage initial phase strength, she had completely suppressed Mu Chen. Playtime's over. It's time to end this. Since Ran noticed that Mu Chen had stopped speaking, she started to feel bored as well. The spiritual energy within her hand suddenly became a lot stronger. Afterwards, she shot down heavily towards Mu Chen in order to end the battle. Bang! But just when she smacked down with her hands, a hint of light flashed through Mu Chen's black eyes. Then, the corner of his lips were lifted up slightly. Senior, it's not a good habit to rejoice this early. A fleeting smile appeared on Mu Chen's face as he immediately fired out a punch. At this moment, dark black spiritual energy surged out like a flood. Within the spiritual energy, a black flame rose as it released an overwhelming heat. In the hall where the battle was being fought, Ran also stabilized herself as her cold expression revealed a hint of shock. Mu Chen was able to fight evenly against her in a head-on battle? How is this possible? Ran looked forward towards Mu Chen. Mu Chen's body was completely wrapped in dark black spiritual energy. On the surface of his spiritual energy, a mysterious black flame floated around as it gave off an extremely dangerous fluctuation. Why did his spiritual energy suddenly increase this much? Ran was completely dazed. If it was earlier, Mu Chen was able to fight evenly against a spirit stage late phase. However, the current Mu Chen had already reached the gateway to the heavenly fusion stage. Although there was still a gap between the two of them, it wasn't impossible for him to make up for it. Senior, now let's fight again. Mu Chen looked at Ran and smiled. Within his black eyes, a black flame rose and the surging energy within his body instantly made his blood boil. As if I'm afraid of you. Although Ran was astonished deep down inside, she still gave a sneer with her mouth and Ran was surprised. Once she felt her spiritual energy weakening, her body instantly moved to the sky. At this moment, her face gradually turned serious as she exhaled. Afterwards, the spiritual energy around her body instantly erupted out as an icy blue hawk appeared behind her. Once the icy blue hawk appeared, a powerful spiritual energy fluctuation emerged as well. The icy blue hawk's body was completely covered with an ice armor. From its body, it released a chill which seemed to have frozen the air. Mu Chen's eyes turned solemn when he noticed the icy blue hawk behind Ran's back. That's, in the hall where the new students were located, numerous people stared at the screen of light where the battle seemed to have reached the climax. At this moment, the seniors' expressions had also turned serious. That guy actually managed to force Ran to summon the Northern Golden Striped Seahawk. That was a heaven-ranked spiritual beast ranked 65th on the Myriad Beast Records Earth ranking. The freshman, which only seemed like a spirit stage middle phase, was actually powerful to this extent? To be able to force me to use the Northern Golden Striped Seahawk, you can be proud of yourself even if you lose. Although Ran still had a cold expression, her eyes had turned quite serious while facing Mu Chen. No matter what happened, the latter had revealed strength that had surprised her. Moreover, she did not forget that Mu Chen was still only at the spirit stage middle phase. If he was to advance into the heavenly fusion stage in the future, he would probably easily surpass her. Since Ran had always believed that strength is everything, she retracted the contempt she had after realizing the full extent of Mu Chen's power. She had finally recognized him as an opponent that was on par with her. Then please enlighten me, senior. However, I don't want to give up yet. Mu Chen felt the surging power within his body and replied eagerly. This power gave him the impulse to cry out into the sky. It was as if he finally wanted to fight seriously against someone. and Ran grunted and an icy blue light swept out from her body. At the same time, the icy blue hawk flapped its wings. Immediately afterwards, Ran's body slowly fused with the icy blue hawk. Frozen wings. When the icy blue hawk's body was completely enveloped by ice, it flapped its wings and a dazzling, frosty pillar was formed and descended down towards Mu Chen. Bang! When this terrifying attack descended from above, the air seemed to explode. Chill filled the air, layers of ice formed as it swooped down, creating an icy path in its wake. Everybody could feel how terrifying Ran's mighty attack was. It was as if a fierce creature from the northern seas, carrying with it an endless chill, had descended into the world. Mu Chen lifted his head, and his black eyes reflected the terrifying icy blue hawk. However, not even the slightest bit of fear could be found in his eyes. Instead, the raging fire within his eyes burned ever more vigorously. Let's have a good fight then. The smile on Mu Chen's face had suddenly turned a bit unruly. He stomped on the ground as he darted forward. Dark black spiritual energy gushed out like flames and enshrouded his body. The two figures of light rushed at each other within the massive hall and collided against each other fiercely. In the hall where the freshmen were located, many of them were completely shocked as they watched this scene. They never expected that Mu Chen would choose to fight against Ran's powerful attack directly instead of evading her attack. At this moment, Zhu Ling and the others had also finished up their battles. They, too, stared solemnly at the light screen. The power displayed by Mu Chen had also completely shocked them. Although judging from his strength, he only seemed like a spirit stage middle phase, he was displaying a power that rivaled or even went beyond what they possessed. The two brothers, Shi Jingtian and Shi Hao, both turned gloomy upon seeing this. It was evident that the power revealed by Mu Chen was much more powerful than earlier when he was facing Shi Jingtian. No matter what sort of measures you possess, it's impossible for you to be at an advantage against a heavenly fusion stage if you fight head-on against them. The two brothers gnashed their teeth as they stared tightly at the screen of light. Brother Mu, good luck. Mo Ling and the others, with their fists clenched tight, seemed extremely nervous as they stared at the blazing black flame in the screen of light. In an instant, black flames fought back and arose within Mu Chen. A low growl seemed to be coming from within his throat. Then, dense black spiritual energy mixed with black flames burst out overwhelmingly from his body. The layers of ice on his body instantly melted into nothingness. Dark black spiritual energy concentrated violently on the surface of Mu Chen's body. Soon he took the form of a giant bird with black wings. As the giant bird extended its wings, black flames surged out. Bang! Overbearing dark black spiritual energy formed into a mysterious black bird as it charged forward. The rumbling black flames emitting from it instantly melted the cold chill from the icy blue hawk. Horror finally filled the icy blue hawk's eyes. Even Ran was able to detect a blazing heat rushing over towards her. This heat instantly made the spiritual energy within her body boil up as if it was being burned. Shatter! A hint of chill flashed through Mu Chen's eyes as he shouted coldly. Then, a loud explosion rang out. Boom! The illusory black bird that was being enveloped by black flames flapped its wings. Immediately after, the flames surged out and destroyed the layers of ice armor on the icy blue bird. In the end, the black bird turned into a black light and pierced through the icy blue bird. The black flames rushed away like smoke. However, the icy blue hawk behind it was filled with cracks. In the end, it exploded out and Ran's body emerged as the blue lights twinkled in the sky. At the same time, Ran's face was filled with disbelief. The dense dark black spiritual energy around Mu Chen's body also slowly faded away. Although he was a bit pale, his eyes were still exceptionally bright. Inside the hall, two figures of light suddenly appeared and enveloped both Mu Chen and Ran. As the light dissipated away, the two figures also vanished from the hall. Inside the freshman hall, everybody widened their eyes as they stared at the fading screen of the light. The entire hall was completely silent and everyone was filled with disbelief. They could not believe that Mu Chen had actually destroyed Ran's terrifying attack. Amazing. The two Shi brothers' expressions turned ugly. However, they did not say anything. It was evident that they were still filled with shock. Even by joining forces with each other, it was near impossible for them to win against Ran's attack from earlier. However, Mu Chen was able to do it, and was only at the spirit stage middle phase. They did not understand how Mu Chen had managed to do this, but this did not stop fear from appearing within their hearts. Mu Chen's demonstration had finally made them understand that even if he had been kicked out of the spiritual road in the middle of the competition, even if he did not receive the spiritual road's empowerment, he was still the blood calamity that countless geniuses feared in the spiritual road. Ha ha, Brother Mu won. As for Mo Ling and the others, they immediately cheered. Sana even clapped her soft and white hands as delight flashed across her petite face. Luo Li, on the other hand, only gently smiled. Her eyebrows were like crescent moons as a hint of happiness and pride emerged in her clear eyes. The boy that she would often think about deep down inside was indeed extraordinary. In the hall, two beams of light descended and Mu Chen and An Ran emerged from within. The latter's cold expression had already faded away. Instead, what replaced it was a face full of complex emotions. She looked at Mu Chen before she looked over to Old Bai and said, "I lost." On the side, the seniors quietly smiled when they heard this and directed their gaze towards Mu Chen. This boy truly isn't ordinary. He actually made An Ran admit defeat. It seems that there are a few powerful individuals within this bunch of freshmen. With just an exchange of gazes, the seniors could tell that every one of them had thought of the same thing. Old Bai grinned as he nodded his head. His gaze also swept across Mu Chen's body as he smiled. "There's something interesting within this fellow's body." Mu Chen smiled in response, but did not explain anything. Although he was not trying to hide the existence of the Nine Netherbird, there was no need to reveal it. After all, the name of the Nine Netherbird was far too famous. Moreover, the Nine Netherbird within his body possessed the qualifications to enter the heaven rankings. Once it succeeds in its evolution, its position would instantly improve as it will become a genuine ancient divine beast. This is your reward. Old Bai flicked his fingers, and the crystal card in Mu Chen's hand instantly brightened up. The originally 1100 spiritual value points suddenly became 6100. Okay, now that everybody's challenge has been completed, next up, Old Bai smiled slightly and waved his sleeves. The air behind him instantly distorted and, with a flash, an enormous bronze door appeared out of thin air. Then, the giant doors slowly opened. The Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy welcomes everyone. At this moment, all the students stared eagerly at the opening bronze doors. Even Mu Chen could feel his heart pounding. After all, the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy was the holy land for cultivation within numerous youths' hearts. And finally, its doors were open for them. Sounds of raging flames. It was one of the widely known 5 great academies within the Great Thousand World where numerous young geniuses gathered. Every one of their students would reveal their magnificent talent as they embarked on the road of becoming one of the dazzling powerhouses within the Great Thousand World. The Great Thousand World was enormous. Among them, there were countless races and various powerful forces. But even so, many of these geniuses would choose to enter the 5 great academies for training. Just based off this, one could see how unique the 5 great academies were. Otherwise, why would these well-born geniuses give up on their own race's inheritance and travel across many continents to train at one of the 5 great academies? Because of the brilliance of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, this place was naturally quite outstanding. When compared to the Northern Spiritual Realm within the 100 Spirit Continent, the Northern Spiritual Realm couldn't even be considered a rural province of the Northern Heavens Continent. Within the Northern Heavens Continent, the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy maintained their exclusive position. Aside from the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, there were still countless small and large forces within this continent. This continent was truly where talented geniuses were concealed. Someone had once said, even sovereign powerhouses would have to retract their pride and arrogance when they arrived at the Northern Heavens continent. Judging from just this, one can see how complex and deep the waters were of this continent. When Mu Chen and the others stepped through the giant bronze doors, they could feel a sense of dizziness emerging from within. This was due to the dimensional transfer. Fortunately, the nausea did not last, and before long they felt their bodies stabilizing. Then, the light in front of their eyes suddenly turned brighter. Everyone opened their narrowed eyes as they stared at the unfamiliar world in front of them. Shock emerged on the faces of many. The originally empty stone platform was instantly filled as Mu Chen and the others appeared. In front of them was a majestic sight. And vast and endless land could be seen. On the ground, there were numerous cultivation halls that were connected with each other. Occasionally, waterfalls would descend down through the mountains as ground ripples of mist emitted out. The scene in front of them was too impressive. Thus, even though the stone platform that Mu Chen and the others were standing on was quite vast, it was nothing compared to the scene in front of them. In the skies above the spiritual academies, numerous figures would pass by. A few would be flying within the practice grounds. Hence, powerful spiritual energies would collide and cause muffled sounds. Among the endless mountains within the spiritual academy, the most eye-catching mountain was the one that was situated in the center. The mountain was oddly shaped and appeared to be a divine bird that had spread its wings. A sense of oppression that enveloped the entire land could be felt from the bird-shaped mountain. At the top of the wings of this bird-shaped mountain, there were stone tablets on each respective wings. On the stone tablet, dazzling light that could be seen throughout the entire spiritual academy radiated outwards. Mu Chen stared at the massive stone tablet situated at the left wing and stared at the top of the tablet. As the golden light shone, two grand words were formed. Spirit ranking, Mu Chen murmured. Could this be the spirit ranking that Ran previously mentioned, that is the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy's spirit ranking? A voice faintly appeared beside him. Mu Chen turned around and noticed Ran beside him. She stared at the massive stone tablet as her red lips twitched. What is the spirit ranking? Mu Chen asked in confusion. Only after the explanation did Mu Chen finally understand the ranking. He was at the spirit stage middle phase. Just what rank would he possess on the spirit ranking? If you believe that the ones on the spirit ranking would only possess the strength of a spirit stage, then you're too naive. Ran grunted, the bastards that are ranked in the top 10 are probably on par with me. Mu Chen was stunned. Afterwards, he was completely surprised. After all, he only defeated Ran after relying on the shared power between him and the 9 Netherbird. Could the people ranked in the top 10 possess spiritual beasts that were comparable with the 9 Netherbird? However, it couldn't be possible that they would possess bloodline bond like him, right? These individuals only used a loophole. Normally, you only need to infuse your strongest spiritual energy within the spiritual value card that Old Bai gave you earlier, and you would possess the right to enter the spirit ranking. The spiritual value card would send the information to the spirit ranking and rank you. Every day, the top 50 of the spirit ranking will automatically obtain spiritual values based on their rankings. How could they not be moved by the idea of earning spiritual values without doing anything? Moreover, just how many spirit stage students would dare to challenge them? However, these individuals are just trying to demonstrate their might over here only. If we were to talk about the next ranking, the heavenly ranking, they probably wouldn't even enter the top 1,000. Ran replied. After this, Mu Chen understood. So there were such benefits from having a rank. No wonder they wouldn't want to leave after occupying a rank within a basic ranking such as the spirit ranking. Then what's the heavenly ranking? Mu Chen continued to ask as if he was a curious little baby. Heavenly ranking. After speaking these two words, Ran's cold expression finally turned serious and her eyes turned completely passionate. She lifted her head and stared at the right wing of the bird-shaped mountain. At that location, there was another enormous stone tablet. Clouds were moving near the stone tablet and golden lights would occasionally flash. Every single name on this stone tablet was a powerhouse within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy heavenly ranking. It is the ranking that students who have entered the 3 heaven stage can enter. That ranking represents the peak of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Numerous geniuses train in order to obtain a seat within the heavenly ranking. Whenever the top 10 ranks within the heavenly ranking change, it is the largest event within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Mu Chen could feel the passion within Ran's tone, and his black eyes focused on the stone tablet. He stared and noticed that the names formed with golden light were permeating out with glory. It was as if they were etched there to be respected and looked up to by all students within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Standing next to Mu Chen, Luo Li, Yi Qingling and the others also stared at the stone tablet which represents the true level of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, heavenly ranking rank 10, Ju Fan. Cultivated at Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy for 3 years. Heavenly ranking rank 9, Luo Hua. Cultivated at Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy for 3 years. Heavenly ranking rank 8, Wang Shong. Heavenly ranking rank 3, Zhu Xian. Heavenly ranking rank 2, Li Xiantong. When the heavenly rankings rank 2 had its name displayed, Luo Li frowned beside Mu Chen. However, Mu Chen failed to detect it. Who is ranked first? Countless eyes moved upwards once again and stared at the top position. At that location, a name carrying a deep sense of oppression emitted out. Heavenly ranking rank 1, Shen Sangshen. Numerous individuals stared at the golden name. Although it was only a name, it was like an unsurpassable mountain. This trauma enveloped and entered many people's hearts. After all, they were only freshmen that had just arrived within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. In this place filled with countless geniuses, they had only just started. However, that person had already reached the pinnacle and was standing above them. Mu Chen stared at the domineering name and slowly retracted his gaze away. He could sense the blood within him starting to show signs of boiling. This is the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy that he had been expecting for so long. Even the competition within the spiritual road was nothing compared to this place. If he wanted to prove himself, this place was the best training ground for him. One day, he would surpass all these heaven-sent children and stand at the peak as well. Even the freshmen that were assessed as king class in the spiritual road had a glimmer of fear and respect as they stared at the name. This is the person that stood at the peak of countless students within Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, Shen Sangshen. Mu Chen slowly spat out a mouthful of air as he gently muttered this domineering name. He is currently the strongest student within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Even I have only seen him once, a year ago. And Ran stared complicatedly at the name. When she mentioned Sangsheng, the latter had completed a mission to hunt down a heaven-rank spiritual beast and had just returned to the academy. Under the sunset, a boy dressed in black robes had descended from the sky with a long spear that pierced through a massive heaven-rank spiritual beast. Fresh blood spattered through the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. As he descended to the academy with his spear on his shoulders, a trail was formed from the trickling blood. That scene had shocked the entire Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Even for Ran, who was a freshman at that time, could feel a shiver coming from the depths of her soul. To all of you freshmen. Right now, he is not someone that you can reach. Hearing this, many freshmen scratched their heads. The spirit ranking wasn't that easy to enter either. If they wanted to rank in the top 50s, they would probably need the strength of a quasi-heavenly fusion stage. As for the top 10, even if they possessed the strength to occupy it, they wouldn't dare to steal the positions away from the seniors that weren't willing to leave the ranking. Thinking about this, all of the freshmen secretly sighed. As expected from the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, which they had come to view as holy ground for cultivation. The competition here was truly terrifying. At this moment, light emerged in the sky above the enormous platform and old Bai's body emerged. He stared at the thousands of freshmen and nodded his head slightly. Then, he smiled and said, "Since all of you have reached the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, then it's time to gather the remaining freshmen over from the other 3 Northern Heavens world. After all, they've reached this place a few days ago." Hearing this, Mu Chen frowned in response. Old Bai waved his sleeves, and a clear bell sound resounded in the skies. Then, it created a symphony of sound waves as it spread out. Following the ringing bell sound, Mu Chen and the others quickly noticed numerous figures that were rushing over and landing on the other stone platforms. Due to the numerous figures, a bustling commotion rang out within this area. On the platform where Mu Chen and the others were, thousands of freshmen stared curiously at the other 3 stone platforms. These people had also passed through the other Northern Heaven world. They were also this year's Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy's freshmen just like them. By adding up the freshmen on the 4 stone platforms, there were probably over 20,000 students. This number was truly extraordinary. Mu Chen stared at the girl and his eyes narrowed. From the powerful fluctuation that emitted out from the latter's body, he could tell that she had also advanced to the heavenly fusion stage. She's Bingqing. She is the freshman that defeated the strongest senior within her Northern Heavens world. And Ran replied faintly, "It's said that she came from the Ice Spirit clan. Hence, she was born with the ability to control ice." Ice Spirit clan? Mu Chen was stunned. Then, he said in surprise, could it be the rumored Ice Spirit clan in which the martial ancestor who came from a lower plane challenged all by himself? Following Bingqing, 2 other figures of light rushed out and stood in front of the east and west stone platforms. On the eastern stone platform, a grizzled figure appeared. His body emitted a yellow glow as if he was a withered tree. However, he gave others a feeling of extremely danger. That's Mu Kuei. He is also the most outstanding freshman within another Northern Heavens world. And Ran stared at the western stone platform. At that location, a slender boy in blue clothes stood with his hands behind his back. A completely different temperament exuded from him. While he was being quite arrogant, he was still exceptionally powerful. That's Yang Hong. I know him, you don't have to introduce him to me. Mu Chen's black eyes slowly focused on the slender figure far away. He laughed faintly as if he was reminiscing the past. Beside him, Luo Li also stared at that figure. A chill flashed through her clear glass-like eyes. At this moment, the boy at the eastern stone platform also felt the gaze and tilted his head immediately. He possessed a fairly handsome face. Matched with his slender figure and unique temperament, he definitely possessed a powerful charm. From nearby, many girls would secretly glance over shyly at him. He stared at the distant stone platform before his gaze focused on Mu Chen's body. His face was stunned for a moment before he formed a strange smile on his face. "Mu Chen, so we meet again." He smiled at Mu Chen. However, his laughter that was filled with dense spiritual energy instantly caused numerous students to turn their heads over. She had lost to Mu Chen. If Mu Chen was mocked by these individuals, wouldn't they also be laughing at her incompetence? When Enran said these words, commotions instantly burst out. The freshmen from the other 3 platforms stared in disbelief at the calm, handsome boy. With just the strength of a spirit stage middle phase, he was able to defeat a senior who was at the heavenly fusion stage. How was that even possible? Bingqing and Mu Kuei were completely startled. Then, they stared curiously at Mu Chen. Yan Hong narrowed his eyes as he stared seriously at Mu Chen. He smiled keenly, as expected from the blood calamity, Mu Chen. It seems that you've hidden your strength quite deeply. This way, it will be interesting. Mu Chen's black eyes stared at Yang Hong and his lips also formed a smile. He took a step forward and his voice suddenly turned cold. If you're interested, why don't you test it out? Mu Chen's cold voice resounded through the skies as he stared keenly at Yang Hong, who was in the distance. At this moment, the spiritual aura within the world seemed to tremble. The freshmen within this area instantly quieted down. Every single one of them were filled with curiosity and expectation as they stared at the two opposing individuals. These two individuals were the most outstanding freshmen within their respective Northern Heavens world. Just how amazing would their battle be when they face each other? Hearing Mu Chen's words, Yang Hong retracted his smile slightly and smiled coldly in response to these words. Currently, dense spiritual energy surged out from his palms as he smiled once again. I'd really want to test you out. Just how in the world did you defeat a heavenly fusion stage with your spirit stage strength? Sparks flew between their eyes as the two of them stared at each other. A cold killing intent belonging to each of them was also apparent. That's enough. Now is not the time for you to fight with one another. Old Bai's figure appeared in the air and disrupted the opposing atmosphere with a swing of his arms. He said, 1 month later, there will be a freshman competition. When that happens, you will naturally have the chance to fight against each other. Whoever manages to win in the freshman competition will be the #1 individual among the freshmen. From now on, all of you are official students within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. No matter what sort of identity and background you possessed before, you are only ordinary students in this place. If you want to earn respect and status, you must show off your abilities. Old Bai stared at the numerous students as he smiled faintly. Next up, all of you have been arranged to live in the freshman area. The freshman area is divided into 4 districts: north, south, east, west. In a bit, there will be an instructor that would lead you over. As Old Bai's voice faded away, dozens of figures of light rushed over from nearby and stopped above them. These figures were all middle-aged individuals. However, the powerful fluctuations emitting from the body made them understood that every single one of them possessed the strength of a heavenly fusion stage. When Mu Chen witnessed this scene, he could not hide the surprise within his eyes. An ordinary instructor in the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy actually possessed the strength of a heavenly fusion stage. If it was in the Northern Spiritual Realm was enough for them to be Lord of the Realm. As expected, the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy was truly powerful. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.